To order. I know Commissioner Baidoon just texted me he's going to be a few minutes late. So Madame the Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner Varga,
Here.
Commissioner Palomera,
Here.
Commissioner Baker McCormick has requested an excuse. Commissioner Dobb. Here. Commissioner Baidoon.
He should be here shortly.
Commissioner Anderson.
Here.
Chair Hattis.
Present.
You have a quorum present.
Thank you. Next item.
Chair's remarks.
I have none at this time, despite how busy Wayne County and the road. You see the orange barrel all over the place. So, but it's a good sign. Next item.
C, approval of the July 12th, 2022 meeting minutes.
Motion been made and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carry. Thank you. Next item.
D, unfinished business. There is none listed.
Thank you. Let the record show Commissioner Canlock join us. Good to see you. Okay, next item.
Item 1, under new business, forwarding notification of a public hearing before the Plymouth Township Board of Trustees on a Brownfield plan for the Plymouth Township Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for property at 9075 General Drive.
Okay, those are three items. It's receive and file, and let the record show Commissioner Baidoon just join us.
Move to receive and file.
We take all the three at one in
All
one
three?
item. Okay, any support?
Support.
Motion been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carry. Next item.
Item 4 on the addenda, requesting commission approval of the 2022 annual action plan for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
That is for the distribution of the CDBG funding, and I think that it's need motion to be approved.
Support.
Motion been made and supported. Any discussion?
Through the chair, I don't know if the department is online or if they're just running a little late, but we wanted to walk the commissioners through this plan to make sure that everyone fully understood exactly what it is doing. So again, I don't know if the department is online at this point.
Anybody from the administration like to explain how the distribution going by the projects, the way we changed the CDBG funding? It was very successful with the assistance of HUD to Wayne County. Thank you.
Through the chair, this is Eddie Fikori from the administration. I am trying to contact the representatives from the department. If you can provide us a couple minutes, I'll make sure that somebody is at least present to answer any questions.
Start the discussion just to try to keep the conversation moving. Several meetings and discussions with the department regarding CDBG, just to get a clear understanding of what they do and how they process things, because we actually found out we didn't have a clear understanding of how things fully operated. So we had several meetings with the department with regards to the general operations of the program. I'm gonna now walk through a few of those, and I'm gonna share the mic here with my colleague, Mary, since she's the numbers lady, and a lot of this has to do with numbers. But as you know, a few years back, the program was changed whereby each of the 34 participating jurisdictions were allowed $20,000 for a project. And then a certain portion of funds, the remainder of the funds were set aside for what we'll call RFP projects, whereby the communities were able to submit projects to the county. I don't know all the details of how it's selected, but the department then reviews those. And then certain projects are selected, they're RFP'd out. And then those, some of those projects are then submitted in this particular action plan for approval of the commission. Now, what's different this year about the action plan is that it includes a 10% contingency for the RFP projects. As you recall, I guess a month or so ago, we had this committee had approved additional funds for projects because the cost that the community had indicated to the county, actually, when it was RFP, the cost was more. And so the county had to find a way to supplement that bottom line in order to make the projects happen. So in an effort to address that and to hopefully have that not happen in the future, the department has requested that the commission allow a 10% contingency for each of those RFP projects. So that is included in this plan for each of the projects. In addition to that, so the department is requesting the general delegated authority. So over the last several years, this body has delegated authority for the department to enter into contracts. That way they don't have to come back here for every contract. So in the plan that you have before you, you'll have the $20,000 project. You'll see the community. You'll see what the community indicates they're going to do for it. And you'll see the amount, which is $20,000. They're requesting that we delegate authority for that so they don't have to come back here for approval of those agreements. They're also requesting that we delegate authority for the RFP projects. So right now, if you look at the plan, for example, you'll see that the city of Trenton has an RFP project in the amount of $195,000. There's a 10% contingency set aside for that. Now, what that means is that the project will be in the city of Trenton. However, it won't necessarily, the contract won't be with the city of Trenton. The county will actually RFP that project out. The winning bidder would then be awarded the contract, and the CEO will be delegated authority to enter into that contract with that vendor for the project that's set forth in here, but it's not what the city specifically listed, if that's clear to everyone. So they're requesting delegated authority for that. In addition, in the CDBG program, there's something called housing rehabilitation. This year, the department is setting aside in this plan $350,000 for housing rehabilitation. They are requesting delegated authority so that they can expend that $350,000. Now, we won't know, and we don't know currently who will be allocated portions of those funds, because it's my understanding that those funds will be for individuals who will actually apply for housing rehabilitation. And now that the department is here, perhaps they can jump in to explain somewhat to the body what housing rehabilitation is and how that works. Again, they're requesting delegated authority to expend the $350,000 that's in the plan, and any additional funds that they want to add to that, they'll come back for commission approval. But I'll stop and let the department jump in right now.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kenlock?
Yes, I would like for them to roll this question in. Whenever I hear delegated authority, that generally means that it is to carve away, carve out, or to limit or somehow short circuit the commission's oversight. And so I really want to hear the need and the necessity and urgency as it relates to the delegated authority in this instance.
We'll take.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When we're talking about delegated authority for the housing rehab, the process is the community submit an application. They fill out the application, they submit their documentation. We have to go through all the regulations that's required for HUD. In that process, while they're submitting the application, we have to do a SHPO, which is sent to the state to identify whether it's in a historical district or not. Once that's received, we make sure that we have all their income, they meet the income guidelines, and we also have put out for contractors to bid on these properties that the homeowners that want homeowner rehab. We go through procurement. Procurement identifies whether the bids that is received from the contractors is low bid and they can do the work. we sign an agreement with the homeowner, and there's a lien placed on the property to protect HUD's funding. It's a 5-year lien, it's a 10-year lien. It depends on what the affordability period is.
Just also too, these are usually, home rehab is usually roof repairs.
Both introduce yourself for the
Oh, I'm
record,
so sorry.
please.
Stephanie Cates, Wayne County Economic Department. Also, I want to say rehab are usually small projects like roof repair or furnace installation and things like that. That's on an emergency basis. So it's easier for us to get that done instead of have to come back to commission for each contract because it's usually on an emergency basis. And it's a small
Understood.
amount of money too as well.
Thank you.
Also, we currently have applications, homeowners, they're calling and we're trying to, move forward to be able to assist them. We have applications from Highland Park, Southgate, Romulus, Ecorse, Inkster, River Rouge. I can't remember all of them. And a lot of them are roofs, furnace, things that they need.
The system, the way it used to work, have too many complications in the past. And when you give some community the money, there some of them, because of the restriction how to use the money, was difficult for certain community with different income level and their municipality. And we always have the risk to lose some money if it's not spent in a timely manner. That's why a few years ago, the new administration felt like the Cdbg program have a lot of complication. And then I work with Terry Carroll at that time for us to see what other county do. And we visit some of the counties to see their system. By then HUD bring to our attention county in Texas was the best run Cdbg program in the nation. So we study that and we find out it's go by projects, because there are a lot of community get $20,000 and they have important project cost $200 and $300 and $400 and they can't afford to do it. So we decide to go that route, and the administration and the commission approve the change. And now they take those projects and they set priority. If we give one municipality this year $200,000, we could skip them next year to give another community. And everybody comfortable with that. I think the new system, it's gonna move a lot of projects to be done in timely manner, and we don't face the risk of losing any money because we're not going to spend it in the time allowed at that time. So it's a good program, and I hope we'll continue work to make it better. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we don't agree on some of that, but I on the change that was made. But I do want to ask specifically to this on the rehab projects. Who makes the final decision on which ones are chosen?
Well, we started taking when we right now it's first come, first serve. And with the applicants that we have now, as we stated, there a lot of them are roofs. So if there's a situation that's, dire need or something like that, some things are case by case, but currently right now, we have an established list of who turned in the application. And we're trying to start with that.
To answer your question too, when the municipality requests a project, they let their commissioner know, and the commissioner and the administration work together, and there's some urgent, like we said, if it's a roof for a museum or for something that qualify and it's urgent, that would set a little bit of priority. There are too many projects could wait 1 year, doesn't do any harm. There's certain project doesn't. But between the commissioner, the community, and the administration, we reach agreement. And so far, I didn't hear of any complaint from any community. In fact, they was really worried about the change. Always the change in the beginning, it caused a little bit of concern. But so far, since we start the change, I think things running smoothly.
Do you know personally, I mean, I don't know if the commission's ever received a list of what these projects are that are chosen for, not the housing repairs, but I'm talking about these big projects since the change in the allocation and
Because any project, after they did allocate the money, it has to come to the commission for approval. Yes.
And to that point, so in our discussions with the department this year, we did request and we will include in the resolution reporting. So even though we have a list right now of the projects for each community for $20,000 in RFP projects, they're going to report back to the commission. So if one of those projects don't happen in the community before those funds are reallocated someplace else, this body will be made aware that a community didn't spend their money or that an RFP project went over or under budget. In addition to that reporting with regards to the housing rehab, we'll get reports now based on how those funds, which right now is $350,000, are allocated. And at that time, they may then come back and request more money based on other projects that didn't happen to perhaps go into that fund. So as a part of our discussions, we did agree to and discuss having detailed reports come back to this body so that you're fully aware of how the funds are actually being spent.
I guess my question is, and to our council, does the commission, since the plans, the way the money has been handled, the CDBG program, have we received regular reports on which large projects were approved and that there's not been a repeat? It was, as was explained, and it was promoted, it was that, as the chair has said, one community that receives that would not receive it again. I believe it was for 5 years.
Not again, I mean, you could skip them because they, like community used to have a 20,000 or 60,000. Now they have a project for $500,000. Now you could afford to skip them a couple of years or one, whatever.
My understanding is that was the promise, that it was going to be moved around. The one community that received it 1 year would not necessarily get it the next year.
Yes, and
They would have to
unless
wait.
there's certain emergency happen, then we have to deal with emergency. But if not, it's the normal procedure.
Actually, that's what we did this year. So the projects that were not rewarded in 2019, 20, and 21, we reached out to those communities and listed projects from them. So this year we did that.
You did what?
Rotated.
Moved it around is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. So we're not repeating the large
Correct.
projects with
Correct.
any
So
of those.
those communities that didn't receive money in 2019, 20, and 21,
Mhm.
we reached out to them specifically and said, do you have projects that you want to fund for this year? So we have projects this year that weren't funded for the first 3 years.
All right, thank you. Thank you,
And,
Mr. Chair.
excuse me, we also have to keep in mind that we also have to meet the low mod income required by HUD, which is 70%. And if we don't meet that, that's not good for HUD. So we have to take in consideration meeting the 70%. We have to take in consideration the communities that have not received funding. We also have to take in consideration that when they submit their application for funding that they should, we're trying to give to them, they have to have a viable project. They have to have the paperwork in order. They have to have everything in place to be able to receive those funds. If they don't, we have to move on to the next one because we have an obligation to expend these funds.
So is there a group, as I mentioned before, is there a group that meets and decides of these projects as they come in with the timeliness and all the other factors you use?
Yes.
And who's that made up by?
It's made up of someone, I have to look at the list, someone on the 31st floor, grants, it rotates. So we're trying to, to even change a few things coming next year.
Yeah, I think it's somebody for procurement.
Procurement as well, yes.
Okay.
Commissioner Baydun.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question. Certain situations arise where homeowners lose their furnaces or their hot water tanks. For example, like in Dearborn last year, I can't tell you how many furnaces were destroyed and hot water tanks because of the flooding. Outside the city of Dearborn, because I know the city of Dearborn receives their own funding. In such a situation, can these homeowners apply for any of these assistance, even though the city of Dearborn gets their own and maybe they didn't have enough money to pay all of these low-income people? Can these homeowners take advantage of some of the money that's still with the county?
Dearborn has their own home funding and CDBG funding. And I am aware they do have a rehab program, and I am aware they have quite a bit of money for rehab.
Well, the situation in this case, it have a different way. Most of the property owners sometime, they have a flood insurance that covered that.
Covered.
And then if they don't have that coverage, the issue is gonna depend on the income of the individual. If somebody have a $2 million home and have a $500,000 income, that not qualify, that the program, it's meant to assist the people who can't afford. And in that case, if there any person financially can't afford to do that and they don't have a coverage, and then they could submit their request to the CDBG program.
Yeah, I'm referring to those homeowners who are on low income and FEMA did not cover their flood damage. And those are the people that were left without any assistance.
The practice of the consortia, which is Dearborn, Lincoln Park, Taylor, and Livonia, they both have their own CDBG funds. They both have their own homeowner rehab funds. We are currently working with the communities that do not receive CDBG funds and do not receive home funds.
Any other question? Commissioner Varga.
Thank you. If a lot of these projects are roof-related issues, wouldn't it cost a little bit less perhaps to get a bigger contract just to have the roof? People who do roofs bid for a whatever amount?
To be honest with you, from what I've
Have a
seen,
blanket
yeah,
kind of thing.
with the aftermath of COVID, we're trying to see if prices for lumber and everything is going to go down to where we can get smaller costs. Because right now, I think all contractors are taking, advantage of what the high cost is for lumber right now. So it's hard to see whether we would lump it in. We're thinking about doing that to see if that would work to get a lower cost. But right now, I don't see that cost is lower.
A lot of times, if you have 10 roofs, for example,
Correct.
Contractors can get shingles, for example, for a lot less if they buy in bulk.
Yes.
And so there goes the savings, and same with other. I know wood is a lot of, it's a lot more expensive than it used to be. But shingles, I think, would be a big savings if we had a bigger project or they could buy by bulk. But I do know then that we may leave some of the smaller companies out, so there's a trade-off. My bigger question is, with the climate change, do we allow them to use air conditioning as part of the upgrade when they ask for assistance?
Yes, in my experience, we're working with rehab. When I worked in Pontiac as well, it required a doctor's excuse, doctor letter, note. And we've had several homeowners provide that as well.
Any other question? Felicia?
Okay, sorry. Okay, so just a follow-up to a few of the commissioners' questions in the department, if you can verify. So the CDBG funds, aren't they limited by HUD to the 34 participating jurisdictions for Wayne County?
Correct.
Okay, so I think that answers the question because the other cities are not a part of the participating jurisdictions under HUD because they get their own funding. There is a limit and maybe no possibility some of the funds that you was indicating would be able to based on the way the program is set up through HUD. I believe that's the understanding. That's why we talk about
Yes.
34 participating jurisdictions. And those communities to get their own funds are not a part of that 34 participating jurisdictions. So I think that may answer and clarify that point. Commissioner Kinlock then indicated and asked about delegated authority. So historically, the commission has delegated authority for the CDBG program. The reason for that is one, because it's a lot of contract and contract processing, but it's also because the commission is aware right now at this moment, you are approving the communities, you're approving the projects, and you're approving the amounts. Any change to that will come back to this body except for the 10% contingency that I mentioned earlier, which would then be reported back later from a reporting aspect. But there are other aspects of this action plan that are not delegated. For example, there's a portion of that we call a home program that those, and I think it's $3 million, those contracts actually come back to the commission because right now
Yes.
we don't know the entities or the projects or how those funds will be used. So the department will submit individual contracts. So we're not delegating authority for that. In addition, there's a small portion for the emergency shelter grant, ESG, which normally goes to Samaritas for the family shelter.
Yes.
And that will come back to the commission. So we're also not delegating authority to that. So the delegation of authority is just for those items that the commission is aware of as far as the detail for the projects. And just as a follow-up, just to clarify the rest of the program. So we talked about housing rehabilitation. There is a line for delegated authority that the department is requesting a small amount of $130,000 or so for something called project delivery that'll be used to help offset or other projects if they're over budget, but I'll let the department explain what that is before we delegate it. You would delegate authority for it?
So sometimes when we're doing the RFP projects, the communities for engineering, specs and things like that, sometimes the community don't put enough in their request for their application. And that's a vital part of the getting RFP out. So we can use those project delivery costs, which will go to actually to the city, not the contractor, to do the environmental, to do the engineering and spec book and design.
The other question? Motion been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carried.
Just, Chairman, just so the body knows, the resolution that will detail all the delegated authority we're still working on, but that will be available and before you at full board. It's just not available today, the detail.
Noted. Thank you. Next item.
F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
Next item.
Public comments.
Mute everybody. Anybody from the public like to speak on any matter at the Economic Development Committee agenda? Everybody been unmute?
Yes.
Thank you. Any comment from the public? Third time, anybody from the public like to comment on the Economic Development Committee agenda? Here none, we move to next item.
Adjournment.
Been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, motion carried.